And it just reminds me of how anybody asks advice on recording a podcast, the first thing that person is going to be told is make sure you actually hit record. Because so many podcasters will tell you about that nightmare when they finished recording for 2 hours and they realize they never hit record. I have never had that problem.
Oh, really?
Which means I'm due.
Yeah.
But we're recording now.
No, we are.
As the audience can tell you now, because right now they are listening to episode 11 of
by
podcast.
Audience, I thought you meant our dog, who isn't even in the room.
Then
and doesn't,
she's not the audience.
And doesn't really care.
She does not care.
No, she does not care.
Oh, I'm Sean, by the way.
And I'm Lisa.
And we are your co-hosts for this episode.
And I have
probably for all episodes.
And I have no notes or preparation or anything at all.
Here are my notes right here.
On the back of an envelope.
5 bullet points. 6 if you count the episode title, because I do count that as a note because I never know what episode number it is. But this is absolutely 11.
Oh, really?
But this is all the notes I had. Starting with the latest acquisition in our music collection that just arrived the night before we're recording this, and that's She and Him's Melt Away album, the album of Brian covers. And it has quite a variety. It has, of course, Melt Away, because, well, why are you going to call something Melt Away but not have that song on it? And it has some of the usual standards like Wouldn't It Be Nice and Don't Worry Baby and Darlin'. And then on the other end, you have Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. Which I gotta say,
that is definitely not expected.
And it is especially not expected when you actually hear their version of it, because I laughed harder than I've laughed in quite a while when I heard that thing. I just don't know how to describe it.
Well, I don't either, because I haven't heard it yet.
You haven't heard it, yeah.
No.
And do I recommend this? I don't know. I don't know if I can definitively recommend it or not, because some of it's good, some of it's meh, some of it is fun, and some of it just plain sucks. I'm just going to be quite honest. One thing I will mention here is regarding their version of Don't Worry Baby, you're better off with Keith Moon's version. Yeah.
Well, remember Keith Moon, God bless his soul, he put a lot of love into it.
He did.
Because that man would have given up The Who to be the drummer in the Beach Boys.
Oh,
and
yeah.
of course, that would have led to just the destruction of life as we know it, because just no.
I don't know if Mike and Carl would have, and especially Al, I don't know what they would have done with him.
I don't know, but he would have tried, and it would have been, they would have had to call the California Highway Patrol, I think.
Oh boy.
It would have taken like a state level of
that would make 2 bands that would be banned from hotel chains, the Who, the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah. But going back to the She and Him record, I must say, I have not listened to it yet, but I did admire the lovely orange vinyl.
Oh, what do you think made me pick the vinyl version?
It is a beautiful, beautiful color. Like, it's the kind of, like, you want to just put it somewhere and have light shine through it.
Yeah,
it's a gorgeous shade of orange.
Yeah, there are little black specks in it here and there too. It's not the tiger stripe version, it's the orange. I forgot how they describe the orange speckled version. It's almost solid orange, but with little hints of black.
I mean, it's like in Ocean Beach, San Diego, where we are going once again for the 7th time in 3 years. I don't know.
I lost count at this point. We may or may not record there,
but
too.
there is a wonderful tiny little record store called Cow Records. They have in that store just your standard issue drop ceiling, and in the kind of opaque panels that are over the fluorescent lights, they also have various colored vinyl. If you have access to a drop ceiling, that record would be a lovely thing to put over your opaque panel. Or not opaque.
Wait, which panel are you talking about?
Like the ones that the light is meant to...
Oh, that's translucent.
Oh,
That wouldn't be
translucent. Yeah, I knew I was saying the wrong thing.
Means that you can't... Light doesn't go through it.
I knew I was saying the wrong thing.
Oh, also, I wanted to address a tiny bit of feedback we got actually over the course of the history of this podcast, both from the same person. Thank you, Rob. We forgot to mention early on in this podcast, like the first or second episode, maybe even episode 0, you had talked about the Pickwick compilation that you heard that had She Knows Me Too, the 8-track.
Yeah.
And,
called Good Vibrations.
Yeah, called
released sometime around 1971, I believe.
Yeah, and Rob commented that it sounded an awful lot like Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3, and when you compare the track lists, it is Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3 minus Surfin', which Pickwick probably couldn't have gotten because Capitol's license to that song expired by that point. And Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah.
Which was on Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3, but not Little Saint Nick or even The Man with All the Toys, both of which were singles.
And that's not even the best song on the Christmas record. Like, what about We Three Kings?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
I mean, Frosty the Snowman's fine, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
I would not, if I had to pull a song from the Christmas album for a Best of the Beach Boys record, that's not the first one I'd pick.
No. But yeah, it really is Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3, except I think 2 songs are flipped out of order, but that's about it. And Rob also said in response to my question last episode, because I overheard someone say that Debbie Scher was Darian's wife. They are not married. That is, neither one of them is married. So,
to each other. To other
or
people.
To anybody, or to anybody else. Although I think if they were to be married to somebody, it would be to each other. I think that is pretty much definitive.
Yeah, without knowing them personally, just from what we see in performance, they seem to have.
Yeah, I think they do have some kind of relationship. I don't want to pry into their own business or anything, but what kind of tips it off is if you watch the Long Promised Road DVD or Blu-ray, we have the Blu-ray, we were watching the extras, and Darian shows up to a rehearsal or for a concert or something, and Brian says, "Hey, Darian, is Debbie with you?" So, yeah, I do think they have something together, but I don't know. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to pry. Oh, yeah, there was also one other thing from, I believe it was, I don't remember if it was Ken or John who commented, I can't wait to hear you guys talk about Sounds of Summer. Thing is, I don't know about you, but that's not on my radar, really.
No, I mean, okay, it's like this, and I have posted this in various internet spaces, and this goes back a long way, when there's a new Beach Boys greatest hits compilation of some type. And of course, there's always going to be some kind of goodie on there to get people who already have a lot of the material to plunk down their money for this new thing. I mean, years ago it was stereo versions or something from the vaults or, whatever. And yeah, we would plunk down our money for these things in the past, but after a while, you just don't need it anymore. And there are people who take great umbrage and get very, very upset about, like, how dare they put out a new issue of Sounds of Summer and expect me to spend money on it when I have 68,000 other Beach Boys records and whatever. It's like, dude, this is not really for you. Yes, there's the goodie to try to get us to buy it, but we're not the target audience for, like, this is meant for people who don't already have 68,000 Beach Boys things.
True.
And that's who I want buying this. I want the person who has never purchased a Beach Boys record or tape or CD or whatever, or maybe did a really long time ago, and they're in Target and they happen to see it, because it is well promoted, and they happen to see it and be like, you know what? I really like a lot of these songs. I think I want to get this. That's who I want buying this thing. Or the people who go to see the Mike and Bruce show and next day they're in Target, or they happen to see an ad online and they
or if
order
it's being sold at the Mike and Bruce show.
Yeah. These are the people that I want buying this, because that's what opens the door. Because most of us started with some kind of greatest hits package.
Best of the Beach Boys Volume 2 and Sunshine Dream right here.
Endless Summer when I was like 3.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how a lot of us who were not fans in the 60s, many of us weren't born yet,
including both of us.
We got on board because of these greatest hits things. You listen to it and you like it, and that makes you want to hear more, and you start seeking out other things. And I know that doesn't happen for everybody, but that's okay. If you have some Beach Boys music in your possession, yay, go for it. But I'm not going to be personally offended by Capitol Records for like, oh, how dare they put out... It's like, no,
it's industry standard.
You want to refresh these things over the years. I mean, I saw a post somewhere is like, why don't they just put out Endless Summer? Well, Endless Summer is a pretty limited... Yes, it is it is the greatest hits, because it's pretty much all things that were either... With few exceptions, everything on there is either an A-side or a B-side, as we've discussed already. But it only goes up to 1965, unless you're looking at the CD, which does have Good Vibrations on it. But again, there's a lot more of the Beach Boys' career and catalog that is not on Endless Summer. So that's not necessarily the only stuff I would want somebody to hear.
Sure. And if you really want Endless Summer, you can get it. I think it is available on vinyl from I think is it Analog Productions, I think, and it's the same people who did say
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's the same people who did Surf's Up and Sunflower and I think Surfer Girl, and if Surf's Up is any indication, then that Endless Summer will sound really good too. But I think that's the only way you can get it.
But the thing is, if you buy the Best of the Beach Boys CDs that came out in, or what were they called?
Well,
was it Greatest Hits? Was it,
in 1990,
the thing with the big orange on the label or something? I don't know.
In 1990, when the twofer CDs on Capitol were out, there was I think it was a 3-volume series called The Absolute Best.
No, I'm talking about the stuff that came out, like there were the 2 CDs.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, like in 2000.
And then there was the Caribou.
Yeah, it was Greatest Hits. I think there was Greatest
Hits,
Greatest Hits
Brother
Volume
Years
2,
or something.
And then there was Greatest Hits Volume 3, the Best of the Brother Years. Yeah.
I mean, if you have that, dude, you can cobble together your own Endless Summer. You can go on iTunes and just buy the songs individually. Like, you don't... Yeah, it's 2022. You don't necessarily need to have somebody hand you an entire package. If there's a bunch of songs, Beach Boys songs that you like, you could just make your own greatest hits. And that's why I'm a little bit of a dope when it comes to what's on what album, because going back many, many, many years, because I mean, I never had really, until Pet Sounds, I never owned an actual Beach Boys record, like a record. I had Endless Summer, I had that Pickwick 8-track. I just had a bunch of songs.
Yeah.
So to this day, I still don't know off the top of my head what's on what album, with a few exceptions.
You'll hear Carl's Big Chance and you'll know for sure it's not from, say, Summer in Paradise.
Oh, God.
So at least you can use process of elimination.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'm not that much of a dope, but like, I don't know the track listing of Shutdown Volume 2 because I've always taken stuff and made my own mixtapes, or like when the Good Vibrations box set came out, I took the stuff at that time I still had a cassette player in the car. So I would just take like all the stuff I like and put it on tapes to listen to in the car.
Oh, yeah, I make playlists like that. Like I have a Made in California playlist that's nothing but the archival material. Yeah. Same thing with Feel Flows. I have kind of the best of the Feel Flows set playlist.
And even now I have like several different Beach Boys playlists. I have one called Pet Sound Signposts. I have one that's called Paul Dano Gets It, which is from an article that I read that had a playlist he put together in studying and preparing for his role as the young Brian Wilson. So it's like, this is the stuff he was listening to and the stuff he was really digging. So I have that. I've got several different ones. And oftentimes of course, the thing I really want to hear is not on any of those playlists, so I have to go make another one.
Of course. I mean, the thing is, I got nothing against, say, listening to Sounds of Summer. It's just not something I'm going to make a special effort for.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stream it either because, that'll put me down a huge rabbit hole that'll take up another 3 hours as to why I don't stream music. I do check the library periodically to see if they have the new version. They don't. They just have the old version of Sounds of Summer. But also, I don't know. I don't know if it's something I necessarily want to listen to because the track order is a little bit bizarre. Like you might have, say, Surfin' USA followed by Roller Skating Child or something. I don't know if I can handle that, jarring of a transition.
Which I think will lead us nicely into our topic of discussion.
Really? What would that be, dear?
Which is the Siriux XM Beach Boys channel.
And before we get into that, the Siriux XM Beach Boys channel is basically like having a custom Beach Boys iPod, which transitions me into this. Now, something we had talked about before is doing an episode about Brianisms, the interesting things that comes out of the mouth of Brian Wilson. The problem is, as long as that man is alive and talking, there's always a chance of more. So I figured, let's bring in one Brianism per episode. I think we already did it in a sort of an unannounced way, but the one that I wish to introduce now is when Brian was asked about iPods. He was asked if he has an iPod, and he said, yeah, I have an iPod. Okay, well, what's on your iPod, Brian? And his response, about 300 songs.
And they're all Be My Baby.
Yeah, right. But basically, that's my awkward transition into our topic of having Sirius XM providing us with basically an iPod shuffling just Beach Boys and related material.
Yeah. From what I understand, I think they had done this back in 2012.
I think you're right.
When, during the 50th anniversary tour, we didn't have Sirius XM yet. We didn't get it until around, 2016, I think?
Ish?
So, I don't know what it was like then. But we did hear it in, they had it in 2018, was it? Or 16?
I think it was 18.
Okay.
I know they did it to plug the Royal Philharmonic thing. So whenever that came out, that's when the Sirius channel happened.
Yeah, they had it in 18. They didn't have it in 19 or 20.
Right.
And man, I really could have used it in 2020. That would have been a little gift during a very difficult summer.
Are you hearing us, Beach Boys insiders and Sirius XM insiders?
Well, that time has passed.
But still, we need this channel.
Yeah, because in 2020, that was a very bad summer for me because here in Chicago, the mayor shut down the entire lakefront, including the beaches.
Yep. Which
meant I could not go to the beach that is walking distance from my house. And having been a lifelong beachgoer, that is what you do. On a sunny day, you go to the beach. That's just how I was raised. That's what I've always done as much as possible in my life. And I'm a teacher, so I have off in the summer, so it's as natural as breathing. And I was able to find places to go that I had to drive to outside the city. I was very fortunate that I could access something else. But until I learned that I could do that and figure that out, I mean, it was bad. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I was kind of hoping that we would have had the Beach Boys channel, and we didn't. But we did have it last summer to help promote the Feel Flows. Mm-hmm. In kind of a bad set of timing, Feel Flows was originally supposed to come out at the end of July, and it got pushed to the end of August, like several days before the channel was scheduled to end. So they really couldn't do a lot to promote it. I mean, they would say, here's something from the new Feel Flows box set. And they would play like a track we already knew.
Yeah. Like something from Surf's Up or Sunflower.
Yeah, they'd play like something we already had instead of like a new thing. But they did give it some attention before the channel ended. And now we have it this year because of Sounds of Summer and the 60th anniversary of the Beach Boys. So I'm not complaining.
No.
Plenty of other people are, though. But then again, in the Beach Boys fan community, just like how there are people who take umbrage about Sounds of Summer, how dare Capitol make me buy this? Because Capitol is going to come into your house and wrestle you to the ground until you add it to your cart on Amazon. I don't know. And then, of course, the people who bought it, like, this is the worst sounding thing on the face of the earth. All right, let's not get into that. No, there's always, but I'm saying it could be like the best mastering ever. Somebody is still going to hate it.
Hey, there was somebody complaining about the smile sessions, for crying out loud.
Oh,
we're not going to get into that.
You mean
right
one
now.
person? I think there were many. So the Beach Boys channel is not perfect. I mean, yeah, it is kind of like your iPod on shuffle, except that sometimes the shuffle gets stuck on particular tracks and plays them many, many times.
I remember last year when we were driving to my friend's house to have dinner, just maybe about 45-minute drive, and then a little bit longer back because of road construction. We heard Little Deuce Coupe in that round trip 3 times. The same version. It's not like it was the party version once and a concert performance at No, it was the regular single Little Deuce Coupe.
To be fair, there are times like you might hear like the 1965 Chicago concert performance or the performance, I don't even know if it's on them, but like the Royal Philharmonic version. Like, I mean, sometimes you do have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you will have like the same exact single version from Endless Summer or whatever.
I mean, considering the vast catalog of the Beach Boys alone, not even considering the solo albums, the spin-off projects, the tangentially related things, Brian's outside productions, there is no reason for that kind of repetition.
And I really don't know what their matrix is or how things, because they don't have, unlike other channels, like say the Beatles channel, they don't have any like on-air talent DJing or anything. So this is just a computer choosing tracks
it could
or whatever.
be totally random for all we know.
And just whatever their matrix is. I mean, and to be fair, it could be programmed to go to the hits more often just because, again, we're not talking about me or you. We're talking about tout le monde who may not want to hear some weirdo thing from 1973. They want to hear Surfin' USA and Little Deuce Coupe and Barbara Ann and
apparently keeping the summer alive, because that's been repeating quite a lot.
Well, you know what? And this is where...
No complaints about it, though. I like that track.
And this is where I personally have found value in hearing this channel over the past 3 times that I've had access to it. Because whenever it has run, I think in 18, it started right before Memorial Day, and it went until right before Labor Day, like the end of August. And then last year and this year, it started July 1st and goes until August 31st. So it's a very limited time. But what I get out of it is listening to things that either maybe I haven't listened to in a long time or just things that I never really paid attention to. Because it's that whole thing of, it's like when you're watching TV and, oh, The Office is on Comedy Central. Now, you might have all the DVDs of The Office. You might have Peacock where you can call up any episode of The Office that you want and watch it right there. But there's something about just it being kind of chosen for you. Like, here's the episode you're going to watch. Or like when a movie is on TV. Where, like, even if you got to sit through commercials or whatever, it's just kind of like someone else decided you needed to see this.
Like how my mother had Gone with the Wind on VHS that she could watch anytime she wants. But, man,
when it was on
she
TV.
touched it maybe once. If it was on TV, though, she'd demand utter silence.
So it's kind of interesting to just have it given to you without you actually choosing it. I mean, there are some parts of the Beach Boys' career that I never really went anywhere near, and I still stand by that decision, but this channel there are things that I've heard where it's like, hey, that's better than I thought. Or maybe it's something I had heard in the past and didn't care for, but then hearing it with different ears, like an example, the song It's Okay. Never cared much for it. I thought it was kind of obnoxious. But when the channel started in 2018, it started, I think, like the Wednesday or Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. And on Friday, I heard It's Okay while driving to school on Lakeshore Drive. And kind of, for those who know Chicago, when you're driving south on Lakeshore Drive and you're getting close to the North Avenue exit, which is the exit I have to take, you got the lake on the left. And by that point, you can really see the lake and see North Avenue Beach. And beyond it is Navy Pier with the Ferris wheel and everything. Like, it's a really beautiful scene. Now, this is Friday of Memorial Day weekend. When you're a teacher, May is the hardest month because it's like the final mountain. The school year is so close to ending, but you have so much to do. And you're worn out and you're exhausted and you just want it all to end, but you still have work to do. But Memorial Day weekend is it's a little treat, a little bit of peace, day off to kind of give you a little bit of extra gas to pull through to the end. And I was weary because that year was, well, every year is rough, let's be honest, but just that particular year, I had been through some real challenges and with various things at school. And just hearing that and seeing the lake, the beach, the lifeguard stand set up, because that was the day the beach is open. Chicago Beach is open for the season that day. So the lifeguard stands were all set up. Everything's ready to go for the beaches to open at 11 a.m. that day. And hearing that song, fun is in, it's no sin, it gave me life. That sold me on that song forever because it is what I needed to hear at that moment.
Hey, it's my favorite from 15 Big Ones.
And really, it's a crying shame that it wasn't a bigger hit.
Yeah.
I understand why they put Rock and Roll Music out as the first single. That's a choice, but it's okay. If they had put it out at that time, like at the beginning of the summer in 1976, it probably would have been a much bigger hit than it was, because it just kind of speaks to everything. Like, it's almost like a checklist of summer.
And it's classic Beach Boys, if ever there was. It is.
So the Beach Boys channel gave me that. Gave me a new appreciation for a song that I never really gave much time to. And there were other things like the song Leaving This Town from Holland. I hadn't listened to it in a long time. And the channel reminded me that it exists and that it is amazing and that I need to make sure I listen to it and put it in my playlists and whatever.
And I recommend investing time into the concert version of it. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. How about you? Is there anything the channel has helped you appreciate or depreciate?
Oh, it definitely helped me
we're going to get into.
It reminded me why I don't like certain things. Like, for example, and I know people are going to crucify me over this, and I really don't care, but I heard one of the Beckley Lamb Wilson tracks from Like a Brother.
Oh, boy.
And then I thought, okay, now I remember why I sold that CD. Because I'm sorry, but that stuff was just boring.
Yeah.
I got to admit, I miss Carl, and I might have mentioned this before, but and I'm serious about this. I cried myself for sleep 5 nights after he died. 5 nights in a row. But man, I just can't get into his material.
Yeah.
His solo
like the live stuff from 1981, he did like a nightclub show.
Yeah, at the bottom line, yeah.
And it's like, why does he sound so angry? Like his underwear was too tight or something.
Yeah, his solo stuff.
Every song
boring.
He's like, rah, 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 rah. Yeah, and
even the stuff he did with the Beach Boys. I like Feel Flows, but that's about it. Well, and Keeping the Summer Alive, but
yeah.
Everything, even Long Promised Road, I don't like.
Yeah,
which I know is wrong.
That's your problem.
Just deal with it. And it actually reminded me of things that I forgot existed. Like I heard Everything I Need. And I forgot that Wilson's album from, what was it, 97, I think? I forgot about that. I'm like, oh, that's right. They did. Brian and Carney and Wendy did an album together.
I do like that there's a lot of, because in between songs, they'll do little sound bites from various people associated in the Beach Boys, associated with the Beach Boys, people who are outside, who are just admirers and fans. And Carney had told a long story about when Brian just called her up one day to ask her to sing on Fantasy is Reality, Bells of Madness with Rob Wasserman. And this was the first time she had worked with him and first time she had recorded anything with Brian, and probably hadn't really even been around him much because I think that was shortly after things were clearing up.
Yeah.
And they were just kind of literally getting to know each other again. But she talked about just how in the studio, Brian was pacing because he was so nervous about singing with her. And like, it was a very emotional time. And Rob Wasserman knew this and kind of took care of them. But it's really just to hear her talk about that was pretty awesome. And then, of course, they always play that right after.
I've still not heard that song on the channel.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because Carney's singing on it. Like, she sounds like a little girl. And I don't know if that was deliberate or if because she was kind of nervous, her voice may have been a little bit higher. I don't know. But, I mean, it still sounds fine.
I mean, it was almost 30 years ago.
Well, yeah, but she was already an adult.
Well, that's true.
I mean, she was not an actual child.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. But she and Brian both sound very good on it.
Speaking of which, have they ever played any Wilson Phillips?
No, they've played Wilsons.
Yeah.
But not Wilson Phillips.
Interesting.
But that might be a different label, licensing, whatever. I mean, they could have played it when I wasn't listening.
So I guess maybe it has to have some kind of Beach Boy involvement.
Perhaps. Perhaps. And I do love, I never really got too far into Dennis's solo stuff outside of Pacific Ocean Blue. And hearing some of things.
There was much solo stuff outside of that.
No, but I mean, there was stuff like Constant Companion.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That.
Yeah, you've talked about that before.
Yeah, I mean, like, he should have been performing that on Saturday Night Live, like with the Saturday Night Live band behind him. I mean, that would have been amazing. And then he and Belushi could have gone out and not been seen for like weeks.
Of course, yeah.
That would have been very dangerous.
Well, then again, that could have happened anyway because, hey, they did do a TV special together.
True. Yeah, so I mean, hearing some of Denny's stuff, hearing some of Al's solo stuff, like Postcard from California. I had never really listened to that before. And then there's some solo stuff that I would rather not hear.
Oh, including the person who I believe must have a connection to the programming at Sirius XM.
What? Mike or Bruce?
Bruce.
Oh, my God.
I am convinced that Bruce Johnston knows somebody who works over at the Beach Boys channel because there's so much Bruce going on. There's a lot. I've heard his solo material, and they have something for the Bruce and Terry
Oh, my
songs.
God. And those are awful. It's like, dude, Terry Melcher did not inherit his mom's singing talent.
Well, now you know why most of his involvement in music was behind the scenes as a producer, as a writer.
Yeah, that's where he should
as
stay.
A musician.
He should not sing. They did their own version of Hawaii. And let's do our rendition of their rendition of Hawaii. 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 Like, they make Hawaii sound like a terrible place.
They make it sound like your dream vacation to Herscher, Illinois.
Oh, yeah. It's, and you know, I've spent a lot of time avoiding the disco version of Here Comes the Night.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I was exposed to it.
You know what the Sirius XM channel did that was just plain evil?
What?
They played Here Comes the Disco, but they showed the artwork from Wild Honey. Oh, that was just mean. Oh.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, because I hear some LA Light album tracks on the Sirius channel, and it makes me think, why do so many people like this horrible album?
Yeah.
Because you got Shortening Bread, you got Here Comes the Disco. You have Carl's dentist office waiting room music. I think I'm going sad.
And then
you can make a good EP out of one of the songs from MIU and 3 of the songs from LA.
Oh, God.
So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of MIU, another song that I had managed to avoid. And unfortunately, here, why don't you describe my reaction?
You are asking me why I don't describe it. I will tell you why I don't describe it. It is impossible to describe.
The first time I heard Hey Little Tomboy, another song I had successfully avoided.
You had
good Lord.
You had the channel tuned in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I was in there with you. This was last year.
Yeah.
And Hey Little Tomboy just came up out of nowhere.
And it was probably after something like The Little Girl I Once Knew or Let 'Em Run Wild, like something really good.
I never saw you make that look on your face before, ever, since we first met on March 8th, 1998, and I have not seen you make that face since.
That song needs to register as a sex offender.
Oh, my goodness.
That song, oh, my good Lord. That came up when I was at the beach the other day. I was playing the channel on my phone, and that song just started. I hit pause and I almost threw my phone in the lake.
And my thing about Hey Little Tomboy, I have a theory that Hey Little Tomboy goes back to sometime in the early 60s as something else, because it is a classic Brian-Mike trade-off, first of all. The melody is very catchy. It's a really nice melody. You can't deny that. And it has a couple of surprise chord changes. It's very basic, but with a couple of very surprise chord changes here and there. And that one line that Brian sings, they're doing it all over the world. I don't think he was talking about tomboys turning into girls, because I don't remember that ever being a fad that everybody was doing all over the world. What were people doing all over the world at some point during the Beach Boys' career that they were singing about? Surfing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a theory that at some point it was called something like Hey Little Honey or Hey Little Surfer, and it was about surfing. That's my theory. And one piece of support that I have for that is the song was recorded in 1976-ish. And from what I understand, when Brian was going through the Landy program the first time, one of the things that Landy was told was that Brian had to be brought back into shape for recording and producing music and writing songs. So he would have Brian write a song every day. Mm-hmm. And it could have been a song about anything in the world. It could be a song about a hamburger. It could be a song about what you saw on TV, which is where I think Johnny Carson comes from. Mm-hmm. And apparently Brian would try to pass off old songs as new songs.
Which is his right. I mean, considering Brian has always had a stockpile.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think that's like just trying to cheat Landy.
Well,
it's like Brian,
he got caught at it. So.
Yeah, but I mean, Brian's always going to pull stuff out of the archives of even the archives of his head.
And I have a feeling that's how songs like Had to Phone Ya ended up on 15 Big Ones, because that was an old song. Mm-hmm. Back Home, that was also an old song that he might have given to Landy and said, hey, here's a new song for you. So that's my theory, but I don't know. If Brian's out there listening, Brian, you'll hear our contact information during the closing credits, so let us know.
But yeah, that just, no. But there are also many other great things, and in the middle of hearing a bunch of songs too many times, you're going to get stuff like Steamboat.
Oh, yeah.
Which is another song I had never really even though I had listened to Holland, I never really gave that song much attention. But just hearing it, well, when I heard it on the Beach Boys channel, that was in 2018, the first time we had the Beach Boys channel. And actually, I don't even know if I've ever told you this.
Oh.
This was maybe 2 months or so after I took a solo trip to New York City. And one of the reasons for the trip, one of the main things I did there, was to go see a performance of the ballet Deuce Coupe, as done by Juilliard. It was done by students at Juilliard. And I had read about this. I had always wanted to see a performance, and now I was finally getting to see it. It was still in my head, and especially because there's a lot of Dennis to Deuce Coupe. For those who haven't seen it, I mean, Got to Know the Woman and Cuddle Up are performed in the course of the ballet. Cuddle Up is the big finish, the big climax at the end. And there's also, like, the piano theme from it is used as transition pieces throughout the ballet in between the different songs. So it's like when I heard Steamboat on the Beach Boys channel, still kind of thinking about having seen Deuce Coupe. It's like, man, if Twyla Tharp had waited like another year, because it was premiered in early 1973, probably put together in 72, I could totally see Steamboat being part of it. That would have been an amazing piece for kind of a modern ballet.
And it just shows what a great team that Carl and Dennis made.
Oh my God.
Steamboat, what else did they have? Only With You, because Carl sang it, Dennis wrote it with Mike. River Song, It's About Time. Those two together came up with some really, really good... Angel Come Home, Baby Blue.
Well, even just when you're looking at the early 70s, just Carl bringing the flame into and having their influence, having Blondie's singing and being involved with songs like Here He Is It. I always mess it up.
Here She Comes.
Here, I always think it's He Come Down, and that's somebody else's
No, that's
song.
a Beach Boys song. So,
but yeah, Here She Comes, and Leaving This Town, and songs that either were Flame songs or very Flame influenced. And yeah, like, I mean, it just makes you think that if things were different, what could have happened with, I always think, like, it would have been great if, like, Carl and Dennis went off on their own and called themselves, the Wilson brothers or something, and just did their own thing. But there's a lot of what if. I mean, what if Dennis had never gotten involved with the Manson family, which I think is what led to his early demise.
Sure, a lot of people think that.
That he never could get over that.
Now, speaking of the Flame, have you heard, I don't know if they ever did play anything from did they ever play anything from the Flame?
Not that I've heard.
Yeah, not that I've heard either. That would, oh man, I just suddenly thought, wouldn't that be cool if they put out their second album in the Sail on Sailor box set?
Oh my God.
Which they have not mentioned on the channel. Unless maybe that's not coming out till next year or something.
That's probably still a ways off.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's any kind of, I mean, we have heard that it is a thing that's going to happen, but we have not heard any kind of release date or detail. So yeah, I imagine that would be more like 2023, like in time for the 50th anniversary of Holland.
Yeah, or if they wanted to beat the copyright, they would put it out at the end of this year, but oh well.
Well, they might put out the little teaser or something like what they did with Feel Flows, but yeah, I mean, more Flame stuff would be awesome, but is Hold On Dear Brother technically a Flame song?
I would call it a Flame song. That's the thing I don't really like so much about Carl and the Passion's So Tough. It has a lot of great songs on it, and Make It Good, but together as a whole, it just doesn't work for me because it seems like you have the Flame doing some songs and the Beach Boys doing some other songs. But when they did Holland, the two came together and fused very well.
Oh, yes.
And the thing is, like, I like what I consider to be just the Flame songs on So Tough, and I like most of the Beach Boys songs on So Tough, but man, just together in a row, just...
But there are, I mean, again, another thing that the Beach Boys channel made me appreciate more. Not like I didn't like this song before. Again, I just never really gave it a lot of attention. You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone. Mm-hmm. Man, I love that song now. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in there that I just really love.
Yeah.
And it's very of its time because it sounds like other things that were recorded around like 1971, but it just works, and there's lots of interesting things that happen in it. It's not just like verse, chorus, done. There's, Like the whole little she don't know part. And
that comes out of nowhere.
I know, right? Like,
that's probably left over from Beatrice from Baltimore.
Yeah. But at the same time, I do kind of laugh at people who are like, oh, I don't want to hear California Girls again. It's like, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you that you don't want to hear California Girls again? Because it's the most brilliant thing ever. And I just think back to, I mean, when I was a kid, all I had was an endless summer 8-track. I listened to the same, 20 songs or whatever it is for years. Mm-hmm. It's like, I've heard Shut Down thousands of times. I can hear it again. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, think about how many times Mike Love has heard it, has sung it in the studio and on the road, and he's still doing it at 81, or he's 81 now.
Well, to be fair, he gets paid for it.
And he gets paid for it, sure.
Well, it's just
but eventually you're going to come to a point where he's like, enough!
Well, remember years ago on one of the forums, somebody said, do you ever think Carl Wilson gets... Was that you?
I said that. I said, do you think Carl gets tired of singing God Only Knows every single night?
And somebody replied, do you ever get tired of hearing it? It's like, well.
Touché, pussycat.
For all the thousands of times that I heard Shut Down, I can hear it again. It's a great song, and there are memories and things tied to this. I still remember being a little kid and my dad explaining to me what it meant, like what the declining numbers are. And
it's not D. Glennon numbers?
No, it's not D. Glennon. It's declining. And I mean, when I was like a little tiny kid, my dad would take me to Raceway Park in Englishtown, New Jersey. One of those Sunday kind of places that they have the radio ads for. And they would have like drag races and stock car, funny cars and things like that. So I mean, not that I'm an expert on these things, but I had probably more exposure than a lot of little girls did back in the 70s. So, I knew what, say, at a racetrack, I knew what a Christmas tree was. Do you know what a Christmas tree is?
No, I don't know what a Christmas tree is.
It's like a tower of lights. There would be 2 sets of lights that would kind of start at the top, and they'd flash all the way down to the bottom. And I think it was green. I think it was either red lights and then green at the bottom or the other way around. But when it got to the bottom, and it was a different color that would flash. So say if they were all green lights, it would be red lights that flashed at the bottom. And that was the signal for the race to start. Like if it was a drag race or something.
So why was it called a Christmas tree?
Because it was a tower of colored lights.
But it wasn't tree-shaped or anything?
No. But that's what they called it.
So it's more of a Festivus pole then.
Shut up. But
speaking of shut down.
But let me just finish. So my dad actually explained to me things like, I knew that it was a Corvette Stingray versus a Dodge 413, and my dad would explain to me why the relative merits of both cars, and why really when you come around to it, the Stingray is much cooler, but really the 413 did have more power and probably would shut down the Stingray, but the Stingray had more coolness, so you want that to win in the song. And I mean, my dad explained this stuff to me when I was 4. Huh.
But speaking of shutdown, that is one thing that the Siriux XM channel has done for me in terms of, I don't know if I want to say appreciation, but going back to that question as to when are you guys going to talk about Sounds of Summer, and tying that together with what you were saying about how they throw something in for diehard fans who want everything. In Sounds of Summer, of course, that would be all these new remixes. Some are good, some are bad, some are just whatever. I like the Shutdown remix because I got to hear that a couple of times on the Sirius XM channel. And somebody once misinterpreted what I was saying. They thought I meant this in a bad way. I mean this in a good way. The new remix of Shutdown sounds to me a lot like the mono mix of Surfin' USA. If you listen to the regular decades-old stereo mix that Chuck Britz did or whoever did of Surfin' USA versus Brian's mono mix, it's not because it's mono, it's simply because of how it was done. Brian's mono mix sounds a lot more lively and oceany and has a lot more oomph behind it. And I'm finding that the new remix of Shutdown has that same liveliness, that same oceaniness, that same oomph. And what was the B-side of Surfing USA?
Shut Down.
Shut Down. So there you go. You got both sides of the single kind of sounding like they have the same vibe.
And also goes along with my assertion that Brian put the ocean in songs that had nothing to do with the ocean.
What's your favorite example?
She Knows Me Too Well. Listen to that song when you're at the beach when a storm is coming.
Yeah, having lived 2 blocks away from the Atlantic Ocean for 7 years of my life, I totally get what you're saying.
That song is what that looks like, or what sounds like. I have a lot of synesthesia. But one thing I do have to say, one song that is played a lot, that I am so effing sick of hearing, and I hate this song so much, Spirit of America. Oh my God, I can't stand this song. I like it. No, I don't like it because, okay, first of all, it's like Brian is whining for like 6 hours about this guy who didn't blow himself up with a rocket car. Big freaking deal. And I realized recently what I hate most about that song. It's that, okay, if Spirit of America was done more in the vein of, say, Shut Down or 409 or Little Honda,
like something that sounds like a vehicle that's doing what was it, 407 miles an hour?
Something fast, something with or even you think the backing of I Get Around, the da 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 da, something with a lot of oomph and power to it. That would have been probably a lot better. But it's done as a ballad. It's like a love song. Like he's in love with this guy or something who didn't blow himself up. I think that's what bothers me the most, is that it's very misplaced. Yeah, it should have been done more. It's a car song that sounds too much like a love song. I mean, that worked for Don't Worry Baby. That Don't Worry Baby is a car song and a love song at the same time. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Brian wanted to go out with Craig Breedlove.
No. And yes, we know it was because he set the land speed record just before we start getting
and it
responses.
Is important.
Yes,
I don't want to diminish the guy's accomplishment for not blowing himself up. But yeah, and I can't stand, they play it way too much. And it's like, Brian, it's like, stop it. Just go out with him, okay?
Well, what's one song that you're glad they play a lot of? Again, I was kind of glad to hear Keeping the Summer Alive, although I admit after 2 days I was getting kind of tired of it.
Which is kind of this year's new appreciation. Even in previous years, I never really paid much attention to it, but this year, it's kind of hitting the spot. And I'm not really sure why, but it's just kind of, I was telling you that, it's another song that it's like, why wasn't this a bigger hit? I mean, it's not like the Beach Boys were obscure in 1980. I mean, 1980 was the year of... when they were doing the big Sunkissed promotion. Yep. I think that was the first year of their 4th of July concerts on the mall in Washington that drew 500,000 people. I mean, the Beach Boys were hot as fire in 1980, but yet Keeping the Summer Alive just fell flat. And it's like that single should have done better because it has an undeniable Beach Boys sound.
Oh, yeah. Lots of hook, too.
But it also sounds like 1980.
And you got Joe Walsh doing the guitar solo.
I mean, I remember 1980. I was quite aware in 1980. So, the sound fit. And I don't know why it didn't, unless they just didn't promote it properly. But it certainly worked.
Yeah, and really that album, I think, it's a terrible reputation that it does not deserve. It's pretty solid. There's some good stuff in there. You got Oh Darlin', a classic Mike and Brian tune.
Well, let's not get crazy. Yeah. I'm just talking about the song.
I'm not getting. I'm totally. Half of Endless Harmony is really good. You got Going On.
the last minute of Endless Harmony.
Going On, for God's sakes. Beach Boys doing Queen.
That is a good one. There is some
good. I mean, there are some clunkers on it, but man, there are some really good songs. I think it's the best of the Caribou Trio.
Oh, yeah.
The Caribou Beach Boys Trio. I'm not, of course, including the solo albums and 10 Years of Harmony, but, you know.
But anyway, you were asking what I like hearing a lot of. I can never get enough of Heroes and Villains. And that is a song that I feel, even though it did do well, it's definitely a thing. I just feel it doesn't get, it'll never get enough attention for me. And I'm still always kind of stung at the thought of Brian going out to, was it KFWB?
I don't remember.
Or one of those LA radio stations late at night with all of his friends showing up in a limo and all excited and wanting the DJ to put it on, and the DJ's like, "Oh, I've got to call the program manager." And it's like Brian freaking Wilson is standing in front of...
Well, the program director said, "Well, is he there? Well, put it on, man."
It's like Brian Wilson is standing in front of you holding a brand new record that nobody has heard yet. But that was enough to crush Brian's spirit.
Oh, speaking of KFWB, here's a trivia question for you. If people who've read the Jim Murphy book, you probably know this one, but what does FWB stand for?
I could guess, but I'm not going to.
Well, the F stands for 4, but what does the WB stand for?
I don't know.
Warner Brothers.
Ooh.
That was the Warner Brothers. So yeah, KFWB had ties with Warner Brothers.
But anyway, so yeah, Heroes and Villains needs to be heard by everybody all the time, forever and ever and ever, because it's the best song ever.
But which version should they hear over and over again?
Well, I mean...
Which of the 67 versions that are on our iTunes folders?
Oh, it's frightening how many different versions. Well, I mean, the single version is fine. The Smile version is fine. The Brian Wilson Presents Smile. I mean, whatever. Just pick one. Just listen to it. And I do like how the Royal Philharmonic version has a neat little orchestral ending it's different. It's not like it's anything Brian did, but it still goes along with it. I like how they kind of made their own little ending. Yeah, I mean, The Little Girl I Once Knew, Let 'Em Run Wild, any of those things just work very much.
Since you threw out a couple of 1965 Brian productions, have you heard Guess I'm Dumb yet?
No.
Have we ever heard Guess I'm Dumb?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's a tragic shame.
I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, and I mean, they have played other Brian productions, like they've played Barbie and...
well, Brian didn't produce that. That's like those are the Height Morgan sessions there. Barbie.
I thought Brian produced
And
them.
of course, What Is a Young Girl Made Of?
Where Brian's trying to sound all suave and but I mean, they've played Honey's productions.
Yeah, they played at some point. They played Spring. I don't know if it was this year.
Oh God, and I want to say in 2018, I think I heard "Thinking About You, Baby."
Yeah, in fact, this year I heard that immediately followed by "Darlin'."
Oh, nice.
I don't know if that was intentional or if it was just a coincidence, but I thought, well played, Lemon.
Yeah. And see, Darlin' is another one you can't hear enough, especially since they play the Sunshine Tomorrow version.
Oh, the stereo version you're talking about?
Yeah, that nice little, with that nice little vocal extra thing that you still can't understand, even though I've pointed it out to you.
Yeah. Maybe Freddie French Pounce, if he's listening, could...
what's the really horrible thing? Mother May I.
From the 63 copyright extension.
Oh my good Lord, that is terrible.
Hey, aren't you glad he kept redoing that until he got Our Car Club?
Well, I mean, Our Car Club isn't really anything to get excited about either. Well, but at least it doesn't have Brian screeching on it.
Oh, man.
Oh, good night. That is terrible.
So Mother is a wicked witch? Because whenever I hear that, I think of Witch Hazel from the Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah.
Or was it Merry Melody? Oh, I don't know.
And of course, The Shift. Because you know, a group of A group of guys in their teens and 20s in 1962. Of course, they're going to do a song about a girl's dress. I don't understand that ever.
And you're a girl. But the fact that we're talking about them playing stuff like The Shift and Mother May I.
Oh, yeah, that they are definitely dipping into, and they have played at some time or another. They've played stuff from every single album, even God Help Us, Summer in Paradise.
Oh, they love Summer in Paradise.
I mean, they've played stuff from like no stone has gone unturned.
The only one that has gone unturned was Looking Back with Love, and I really think it's because I don't think it was ever available in any kind of digital format.
Probably not.
Be it CD or download.
Probably not, yeah.
And I think there might be some kind of rights issues with that.
And let us sit in quiet Thanksgiving about that. That we don't have to hear that.
Oh, I need to share the picture that I took at Lori's Planet of Sound.
Oh, God. Yeah, put that in the notes.
Yeah. It'll be in Insta and all that.
Oh, and another thing I can't hear enough of is when they do play stuff from Sunflower. Because, again, Sunflower stuff needs to be heard. They play Cool, Cool Water a lot.
They've been playing the long version of that.
Yep.
Thank God. Last year, I think they were only playing the single version.
I have heard the entire version. And they even have a soundbite. I think it's Al talking about recording that. It could be Mike, one of them, talking about recording Cool, Cool Water. But I heard Slip On Through, Forever, and I'm sure there have been other Sunflower things.
Well, hey, I heard Bruce's solo disco version of Deirdre on the channel.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah.
I have not, and I hope to continue not hearing that because...
Oh, you're just upset because that version has lyric changes so that it's definitely not about an Irish setter.
No, it is my personal belief. If you listen to Deirdre from Sunflower, I mean, yes, I know it's about a girl, but listen to those lyrics and imagine it being about an Irish setter. Like about the red hair and running away and you're back and... and I'm going to give you a bath. I mean, it's just, that's like if I ever get to meet Bruce, I want to tell him that and he'll probably be insulted and walk away. I don't know. I hope he would laugh at that.
I would hope so too.
And I mean, that song is so freaking cheesy, but I still love it dearly. Oh my God, that song is like the guiltiest of guilty pleasures.
But yeah, really,
it's so corny.
But seriously, though, in thinking about it, the only solo Beach Boys stuff that I have not heard is Looking Back with Love. But I've heard his other solo material on there. The only things I really can say that I don't remember hearing is anything Christmas related. Like nothing from the Beach Boys or Brian's Christmas album or Mike's Christmas album. You'd think they'd do it. And here's a Christmas in July thing.
And Brian's, I did hear, today I heard Your Imagination. I think that's the first time I've heard anything from Imagination in a long time, but I don't think I've heard a terribly large amount of Brian's solo stuff.
Yeah, I've heard things. I mean,
they've definitely played stuff from Smile. I don't know if I've heard anything from That Lucky Old Son.
I don't think I have. I've heard songs from the 88 album. I've heard No Peer Pressure material.
Okay.
Nothing, I don't think anything from the Gershwin or Disney albums.
I definitely heard something from the Disney album recently. Really? And I know I've heard stuff from the Gershwin album.
Okay.
Summertime, maybe? I'm not sure.
And I didn't hear any of Bruce's early material, like from pre-Beach Boys days, unless maybe they're specifically... Well, except Bruce and Terry.
Yeah, well, that's enough.
Nothing of his surf albums from,
we
say,
did
63.
Hear... we have heard stuff from Going Public.
Yep.
And Rock and Roll Survivor.
Yep.
Who a fan friend of ours once said, it's like Bruce bragging about how boring he is. And it's so true.
Hey, he has some merit. He wrote I Write the Songs, which... They have not played that, either his version or the Barry Manilow version. And you gotta admit, that is a perfect Barry Manilow song.
Well, again, that might be a little bit too
It might be
far
too, yeah.
out, and especially since Bruce has, despite what a lot of people say, Bruce has asserted that it's not about Brian. But
Yeah.
I like to think that it is.
Yeah, of course. I'd like to think that if this were a permanent channel, which I really hope it becomes someday, because there are like obscure artists who do have permanent channels, that they probably would broaden the range and play I Write the Songs by Barry Manilow and other outside
Well, yeah, and other
acts.
like covers of Beach Boys songs
Yep.
and bands that like have done songs with obvious Beach Boys or Brian influences, such as At My Most Beautiful by REM.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that.
And of course, while we're talking about that, let's not forget Follow Your Bliss by B-52s,
Oh.
Pancreas by Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, basically Darian's pre-show playlist.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Because, no, there have been a number of bands that clearly either have a Brian or Beach Boys influence throughout their work or have done a particular song in tribute. Again, like REM.
Yeah, and I can imagine that they would expand the scope and include that, and include like some of those songs by the Raspberries that really do sound a lot of Beach Boy.
God. No,
There-
just
there are
thinking back to what was it, PSM, the Pet Sounds mailing list, where there would be endless threads about the Raspberries, and it's like, stop.
But meanwhile, if your post like even mentions the Beatles, you get flamed for going off topic.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even
The Many Moods of Murray Wilson. They would.
Oh, good
I
Lord.
think that's been released digitally in some way or
my
another
God. And of
And-
course, How to Speak Hip,
too. Yes.
which influences Brian's speech to this day.
Oh God, yeah.
Brian is definitely fluent in hip.
And of course, the Holly Ridge Strings albums. Did they only do 2 volumes of Beach Boys?
As far as I
Okay,
know.
as far as I know, too.
Because I didn't even know they did a second one until I
Yeah.
saw it in that record store in Plainfield.
Yep.
But yeah, and the first one I bought at the Ocean Grove Flea Market for 25 cents
Wow.
in 1990.
Mm.
It was almost like, they were like, you want that?
We should talk about about our record collection sometime and
Oh, good
things
Lord.
that we found. So not
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, literally found, like, in the street.
but- hey, literally once we did. But not a Beach Boys record, but
What?
Davy Jones Sings.
Yeah, it was in a box in the alley.
It's in good shape too.
I mean, but that's saying this whole channel, to me, even with the imperfections, even with the I wish they did this, to me personally, it's still a treat.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's the kind of thing where, like, when I was like 12, I would have like passed out and died of total joy. I mean, just like when a radio station in the summer would have a Beach Boys weekend where they still played the same 10 songs.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that was enough to like put me on cloud 9. I mean, just having this channel is like, it's still a gift.
And I remember last year, like, pulling out my thin hair over the repetitions. Again, Little Do Scoop, 409 was another favorite they would play nonstop. This year, there's still a lot of repetition of things, but there's a lot more variety in that repetition.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're playing.
Like, instead of hearing Little Do Scoop every 10 minutes, you're going to hear Gonna Hustle You every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, so they've been playing that a lot, too.
Oh, and another, in looking at like the solo stuff, they've been playing stuff by David Marks,
Yeah, yeah.
which is kind
I
of
heard his
impressive.
version of Surf Jam a couple of days ago. That's pretty good. Seriously, I like what he did with Surf. It's not much different from the Beach Boys version, but I still like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Yeah, I've been playing his
That's pretty
solo,
cool.
David and the Marksmen. So yeah, they're doing that. And okay, if they were to go permanent and have a 24 hours, 7-day a week, 365, 366 day a year Beach Boys channel, what additions would you like to see?
Well, I mean, if you kind of look at the Beatles channel for kind of a standard, you know, that the Beatles channel, of course, plays Beatles stuff, solo stuff, but they also play things that were influenced by the Beatles, which is basically everybody ever.
Yeah, right.
Like, just play a random song. It's going to be influenced by the Beatles.
They played Love and Mercy once.
Well, that was part of a specific show.
Well, yeah, they were doing a show about peace, and
Yeah.
it was all like Beatles and solo Beatles, but they ended the show. They're like, this doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but it does fit with the theme, and that's why we want to go out with this. And it was Love and Mercy from the 88 album.
But they have, like, here's stuff that the Beatles were listening to. And they'll play, like, Chuck Berry or Little Richard or a Goffin Kane song or something like that. I mean, they could bring in stuff that like they could play Four Freshmen stuff. They could play Duke of Earl. They could play Chuck Berry. Just things that influenced the Beach Boys.
And they could have a talk show too. Like, see if you can find a couple of experienced Beach Boys podcasters who could talk about different topics.
Yeah, or they could get, like, say, a favorite Beach Boys author that we know who could tell everybody that they're wrong. And I would love that. I would seriously tune in to hear that.
And speaking of which, we got our copy of the David Leaf book too, and I'm halfway done with it.
Yeah, that will be a future discussion.
Yep.
Definitely, after I read it too.
Well, yeah, I would hope.
But I'd like to see it even kind of expand beyond just Beach Boys and have, like, things that are related, like Dick Dale music other surf bands, or have I'd like to hear some more stuff from the genre known as beach music. Kind of like
you're talking Carolina Beach, right?
Yeah, like R&B music that was very, very popular in the Carolinas in the late 60s. Like, it's not music that has anything specifically to do with the beach. It's not songs about the beach. It's more, I think it's the music that people were digging while they were at the beach.
Sure.
Like just stuff that people could get up on their beach blanket and dance to or whatever. So, like, have some of that stuff. Or
hey, the Beach Boys channel in 2018 converted to Carolina Beach.
Yeah, it did. It did transition. That's how I really got to hear some of that stuff for the first time. Or, like, when you're looking at kind of the Smile era, the whole sunshine pop genre.
Sure.
And have, say, the Wondermints.
Yep.
Wouldn't you like to hear Wondermints on the Beach Boys channel?
Hey, I've heard them on Underground Garage, so why not?
Oh, really?
Austin Powers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chris Carter played them. Their manager, Chris Carter, played
But
he swore that's not why.
But yeah, I mean, there is great potential for things that kind of can revolve around the Beach Boys, both thematically, like music that is about the ocean, about cars, about surfing, whatever, stuff that was influenced by the Beach Boys, things that influenced the Beach Boys. I mean, there is great potential. I mean, if the Beatles channel can fill 24/7, 365 for the past, 5 years now?
Something like that.
I mean, you can find enough stuff to make a Beach Boys and related channel happen.
Easily.
Especially since the Beach Boys were the only, really, for a while, the only American band. And I'm talking band, not singing group, not solo artist, band, B-A-N-D.
A group of people that plays instruments and sings.
Yeah. And also writes and produces.
Wrote a lot of their own music, if not most of their own music.
Yeah, I mean, they were the only act for a while that could really give the Beatles a run for their money. I mean, like
and they knew it, too.
Like George Martin said. I mean, George Martin looked at Brian and was like, okay, this 22-year-old kid can do everything that the five of us are doing.
Yeah.
Brian could play instruments, he could sing, he could arrange, he could write, he could produce. And like George Martin said, it's not fair.
Yeah.
And that's George Martin. So I hope it can happen. I hope. I don't know.
I know there have been petitions going around.
Yeah.
I don't know how effective those online petitions are, but...
Yeah, I don't know how Siriux XM works, but hey, I mean, I'm happy that I've got what I got. It would be nice to have more, but I'm still happy to have this 2-month stretch of pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah. And it sure beats the 2 hours every Monday night for only a few months that the Joliet, Illinois area got to hear in 1996 because of this guy right here.
Oh, yes. Endless Harmony.
Endless Harmony, the Monday Night Beach Boys show. Or as I used to call it, the other side of the Beach Boys, because I played music that was specifically not their AM radio hits, just to prove to people the big point that, yeah, the Beach Boys did more stuff than that, kids. And I actually had people call in and asking for things like Lady Liberty. I'm not even kidding.
Well,
when that station's little tiny range.
People actually listen to your college radio station.
Yeah, that was nuts. And I'll tell you, one thing that I do have sympathy for is the repetition on Siriux XM, because I really don't think anybody specifically sat down and did a whole lineup hour by hour. Because let me tell you, doing that is hard. Except for maybe one show, I sat down ahead of time and planned everything out down to the minute just for the timing. Of course, with Sirius XM, you don't have a lot of these FCC rules. Like you have to put a legal ID in at the top of the hour every hour. And you don't have to program in a stop set necessarily.
And of course, you don't have to worry about commercials.
Of course not.
Because the only commercials that they have are just for themselves.
Promos. Yeah, they're not even commercials or promos. And I'll tell you, even harder is when you don't have something prepared ahead of time and you're just playing stuff at random. That is even harder than spending all that time ahead of time trying to make things fit, especially if you have a theme. So I do have a little bit of sympathy for what might result in these repetitions that I keep repeating myself about.
Say repetition again.
Repetition.
Well, why don't we tie this up so we don't start repeating ourselves?
So we don't what?
I'm not going to say it again.
Damn. All right, yeah. Consider episode 11 of Tune X tied up. So what are we going to talk about next time?
Well,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let it be a surprise.
Yes, that's a wonderful idea.
Since we haven't even planned it yet.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. You want to reach out to us, keep listening, and you'll hear how to do that. Tying it up for this particular episode, hey, it's Sean.
And Lisa.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Tune X podcast. Please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts or iTunes.
You can hear us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and just about every other provider out there. If TuneX isn't on your favorite provider, please let us know.
You can email us at tunexpodcast@gmail.com. Our website, which includes the show notes, is tunex.fab4it.com. Fab4it is spelled F-A-B, then the number 4, then I-T.
Feel free to connect with us on social media. TuneX is on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram and Twitter, both under the handle of TuneX Podcast.
Our opening and closing theme, Melody 10, was written and performed by Scattered Frog.
We'll see you next time, friends. Until then, don't back down from that wave.